All right, well, you're learning three different ways to solve polynomials. One way is by factoring, the other way is by completing the square, and the third way is by using the quadratic formula. Here, we're going to use the quadratic formula to solve these equations. And the first thing you need to do in using the quadratic formula is move all the numbers to the left side of the equal sign so that you can make the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to transpose the 12 by adding 12. Here, let me zoom in on this. Okay, that's better. So what I was saying is that the first thing we need to do is we need to transpose terms so that the equation equals 0. So I'm going to add 12 to this side. That's going to get rid of my 12. But what I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. So I'm going to add 12 to this side. So what I get is x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals, so since the negative 12 was removed, it equals 0. Okay. Now that I make it equal to 0, I make sure that my terms are in the right order. Remember, the right order is the larger exponent goes first. So since the larger exponent is the squared, I put the squared first. Once I have it in the right order, I use the quadratic formula, which is this formula I have written up here. I use the quadratic formula to solve my equation. The coefficient of x is 1, so a equals 1. The coefficient of x here is 7, so b equals 7. And the last number here is 12, so c equals 12. Once I have them in order, I can write what a equals, what b equals, and what c equals, because the coefficient of x squared is going to be what a equals. The coefficient of just x, or of the middle term, is going to be what b equals, and the third number is going to be what c equals. Once I know what a, b, and c equals, I can grab those numbers and plug them into my equation, into the quadratic formula. So let's do that. We said that b equals 7, so x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 7 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 12, over 2a. And a is 1, so 2 times 1. Okay, now I work out the quadratic formula. X equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 12. Well, first you do the square. Okay, so what's 7 squared? In other words, what's 7 times 7? Because that's what 7 squared is. 7 times 7 is 49. Minus 4 times 1 times 12. Well, 4 times 1 is 4. What's 4 times 12? You should probably know that from memory. 4 times 12 is 48. Over 2 times 1, which is 2. See? Okay. We keep on going until we get to our number. So we write x equals 7 plus or minus 49 minus 48, which is the square root of 1, over 2. X equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. So the square root of 1 is a positive and negative 1 over 2. So to get what x equals, first I work out this equation with the positive one. So I do x equals 7 plus 1 over 2. X equals 7 plus 1 is 8 over 2. X equals 4. That's my first answer. Then I work out the equation with the negative 1. So I do x equals 7 minus 1 over 2. X equals x equals 6 over 2. X equals 3. And those are my two answers. X equals 4, x equals 3. Now you're asking, well, why a positive and a negative one? Because the square root of any number is always positive or negative. The square root of 9 equals a positive or negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 equals a positive 9. And a positive 3 times a positive 3 equals a positive 9. So the numbers have two square roots, a positive square root and a negative square root. Because remember, the square root sign means that you have to find the square root of a number. In other words, find the number that when you multiply it times itself twice gives you the radicand, because that's what the number is called. The number under the radical is called the radicand. So you've got to find the number that when you multiply it times itself twice gives you the radicand. So the number for 9 would be negative 3 times negative 3, right? When you multiply it times itself twice, so when we multiply negative 3 times itself twice, we get a positive 9, which is the number under the radicand. When you multiply positive 3 times positive 3, you got a positive 9, which is the number under the radicand. So when you see a number under a radical like this, it means find the number that when you multiply it times itself twice gives you 9. And it's always going to be a positive and negative answer.